and in Vancouver, they have tried to regulate Airbnb in Vancouver from 2017 and Toronto from 2021. I should say Airbnb in particular is quite litigious. They go to court on these issues when a city tries to regulate short-term rentals. They did that with the city of Toronto. In any event, there are regulations in place limiting the units that can be put on short-term platforms. But the problem really is in enforcing any regulations. In Montreal, we see a slightly different situation because of a tragedy. Earlier this year, in a short-term rental, there was a serious fire and it killed 7 people. And as a result of that, there was a real reaction, as you can imagine. And what we saw was actually a quick drop in the number of listed short-term rentals. So those that didn't have a registration number required by the city took them off the platforms. There is new legislation pending in Quebec, and it would require a valid registration number in order for a short-term rental to be put on a platform. So that's why we like to see legislation that actually regulates these short-term platforms, because self-regulation is not working. The situation in New York is very interesting. It changed quite dramatically in September of 2023. They have introduced new rules governing short-term rentals. Probably, I think, maybe the most strict rules in the world, possibly, except in those places where short-term rentals have been banned, and there are a few places where they have. I mean, some people are saying it's the end of short-term rentals in the city of New York, for example. So that's very interesting. Of course, we know that the city of New York, there have been research studies showing that thousands of units that should be long-term rentals were converted to short-term rentals. And so it will be very interesting to monitor what happens in New York to see if suddenly there is an influx of new longer-term rentals on the market. One of the reasons we should be so concerned about the expansion and existence of so many short-term rentals in cities around the world is that there is a global housing crisis. And for many people, housing is simply unaffordable and inaccessible. We know that housing is a fundamental human right. Governments have committed to the human right to housing by signing international legal documents recognizing the right to housing. The right to housing says that everyone should have access to affordable, accessible, habitable, decent homes. And there is obviously a direct link between short-term rentals and the lack of available long-term affordable places to live.